I wish a technology existed that could transfer all the knowledge of one person to another person. Think about what it means for human civilization that every day people with a lifetime of knowledge pass away and that knowledge is lost, except the parts that are handed down to the next generation, but then that generation has to learn many things from scratch, learn them over again, make the same mistakes, gain the same knowledge over another lifetime, and then lose that knowledge when they pass away, and then the cycle repeats. Just thinking about all the things that I've learned about health and nutrition and the way the world works, the media, all these things, science. If there were a way to transfer all that to you instantly, that it would be, of course, revolutionary, because right now we transfer knowledge and information at a very low bandwidth. Talking, you're listening to words, and these words are spoken at, I don't know, maybe less than 100 words a minute. I'm not sure what the pace is here, but it's a very small amount. 100 words a minute. Well, imagine if you had a large video file that was 1 gigabyte, and you had to transfer that video file, which contains information, let's say it's a seminar, you had to transfer it to another computer or another hard drive, and you had to do it at the rate of essentially 100 words a minute. Or let's say if the average word length is, I don't know, 5 bytes, let's say 500 bytes per minute. How long would it take to transfer 1 gigabyte? Well, you can do the math, but it's a very long time, very long time. And that's the speed of communication between people. And society suffers because of lack of knowledge, because the people don't know. And the school system is supposed to educate people, but the school system operates on super slow bandwidth as well. The school system operates at the speed of speech, or the speed of reading in some cases, if students are reading books, but it's not very efficient. And when teachers are lecturing, it's the speed of talking. And it is a very slow way to transfer information from one person to another. The transfer of knowledge is impeding human civilization. It's impeding the advancement of humanity. Now take a look at robots and artificial intelligence systems. When AI systems become more capable, of course they won't suffer from this human limitation. AI systems will be able to learn and then transfer almost instantly all the knowledge, all the things that they have learned into the next robot. And there won't be much of a delay. I mean, it might take seconds or minutes instead of years as it takes at the human scale. And that means that robots can learn and retain and pass on information at speeds that represent orders of magnitude greater efficiency than human beings. And it makes you wonder, how will humans technically compete with that? Really? How are we going to compete with that? It also makes you realize, just thinking about all this, that human civilization is extremely fragile, that everything we know could be lost in one generation. Because if one generation suffers some catastrophe or some disaster that prevents it from passing on that knowledge to the next generation, let's say a nuclear war or an EMP solar flare collapse, grid down collapse, something like that, whatever it is, if it prevents one generation from teaching the next, we are lost. Human civilization is more fragile than you think. It is incredibly fragile. When you're a child, you think that there's a sense of permanence in the world around you. You think that the adults have it figured out. You think that science has documented all that is, right? You think that history has documented all that ever was. You think that medicine has figured out how the body works, top to bottom. They've got it all nailed down. And yet, what we actually realize as we get older and wiser is that humanity knows very little. We have mastered almost nothing. Human civilization is a thin veneer of the illusion of understanding, a thin veneer that can be lost in an instant because of this limitation of the transfer of knowledge. And even thinking about how do you store and retain knowledge? Well, you might think, oh, you're going to save it on your hard drive. Well, what if the next civilization doesn't have electronics that can read hard drives, doesn't understand your file system? What if the next generation can't read CD-ROMs or DVDs? What if there's a collapse and then a rebuilding of human society, and the next society doesn't even have, Windows, thank goodness, the operating system to even read the data that you think you've stored? How many people are actually storing data on things that will last more than 100 years? And the answer is almost nobody. I've talked about this before, how optical storage media have more lifespan than magnetic storage media, which is hard drives and so on. And yet even optical storage doesn't last forever. Think about the writings that we have discovered throughout the last 100 years. The ancient scrolls and so on, they were written on parchment, very durable types of paper made out of hemp and other durable plants that we no longer make paper out of. Our paper doesn't even last 50 years. It crumbles. It crumbles because it's acidic, and it oxidizes and it just crumbles. Well, we used to have ancient knowledge carved into the walls of caves and things, painting on caves and carvings in stone, like the ancient Egyptians, for example. Well, I don't know anybody who today is carving knowledge into stones. Do you? I don't know anybody who's painting the record of human knowledge onto the walls of a cave somewhere. You got to wonder, when our civilization collapses, and it's going to, and a future civilization tries to make sense of what we knew, what evidence will there be remaining? I mean, how will they find written records or data storage records of the things that we knew? I mean, there'll be lots of evidence. There's going to be free AOL CDs forever. There's going to be mountains of landfill with lots of plastic garbage, and there's plastic in the oceans. It's going to be there for a few thousand years, that's for sure. Concrete bridges and structures, concrete buildings last a very long time. They can last 1,000 years. Bridges, highways, overpasses, things like that. Some dams might actually last a few hundred years. There's going to be plenty of evidence that we were here. Lots of pollution, lots of mercury, lead, toxic chemicals, glyphosate, pesticides, all this stuff. It's going to be around for a long time. But how will they find the knowledge of what we had here? How will they discover the things that we knew? Our written knowledge. Is that something that can even be recorded, or discovered based on our written forms of knowledge? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Above all, what I'm getting at here is that you have this sense of permanence, and I'm telling you that sense of permanence is an illusion. Much of what you think is permanent or safe or stored or well recorded, much of that is in no way whatsoever archived or recorded or saved. Even the knowledge of modern science, or even the knowledge of our language, there's nothing about it that is guaranteed to be here after the next collapse. So think about that. Think about that, and think about what it means for you and your preparedness and the future of human civilization and the future of knowledge, the future culture, the future of progress and discovery and science. There's nothing that guarantees it's going to happen. There's nothing that guarantees we won't regress into a collapsed, extinct culture. Just for some future archaeologist to dig up the remains and try to piece together, hey, what made them collapse? What did they do wrong that cratered their whole civilization? I wonder, why did they become completely infertile? Why did they collapse with cancer? Why did they have a nuclear war. And they'll have to put the clues together because there won't be anything that they can load up on a hard drive and see it. There won't be any documentaries remaining because it's all on digital media. There's no guarantee that anything we know today will be here tomorrow. Even the websites that I publish, I always tend to recommend websites at the end of my podcast. So, of course, check out newstarget.com and naturalnews.com, but also know that even these, all the publishing that I do it every day knowing that it's very temporary. There's really nothing permanent about the publishing that I do. So read it while you can, because it's not going to be around forever. Thanks for listening.
Learn more at healthrangerreport.com.
Thank you for watching. If you want to support our mission, visit us at healthrangerstore.com for the world's largest selection of lab-verified superfood and nutritional products for healthy living. It's at healthrangerstore.com.